Big news out of Nashville today. Second-year Titans general manager Ran Carthon is out. Terry McCormick, Chris Yao, Blaine Kellar here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast to give you our thoughts, maybe on what it looks like in the present and the future of the Tennessee Titans organization. But first, giving you statements from controlling owner Amy Adams-Strunk, CEO and president Burke Nihill, and Chad Brinker, who will now be the end-all, be-all in terms of the front office, regarding Ran Carthon being out, parting ways with the Titans as general manager. Amy Adams-Strunk said in a statement, "I've loved the time I spent with Ran. He's a talented football mind, a great man, and friend to everyone along his path. It's impossible to ignore that our football team hasn't improved over the past 2 years. Deeply disappointed on our poor win-loss record during this period, of course, but my decision also speaks to my concern about our long-term future should we stay the course." That win-loss record referring to the 9-25 record over the last 2 years. Strunk continued saying, "I love this team more than you can imagine. To our fans, we know this level of performance isn't acceptable." President and CEO Burke Nihill said this: "We just haven't improved this football team for the last couple of years. We've won 9 of 34 over the past 2 seasons. As much as the record was concerning to Amy as it was to all of our fans, her assessment was also that we're not on course to where we need to go moving forward." As I mentioned, Chad Brinker, the president of football operations, will be heading the search for this new general manager role. Brinker said that he'll kind of be the end-all, be-all, and Burke Nihill echoed that when talking with Jim Wyatt. TennesseeTitans.com, of course, is where all these quotes are coming from. Brinker said at the end of the day, this person is going to be all ball all day, talking about the new GM that will soon enter the building. "They're going to focus on the roster and the coaching staff, and I'll continue in my role handling all the other areas that surround the center of our program, scouting and coaches. So I will support that person, but we're looking for a general manager who wakes up every day and is focused on building the team." Nihill said this to end it all off: "Brinker will break ties with respect to the 53-man roster." Those are immediate statements and thoughts from Titans front office regarding Ran Carthon being out in his second year as general manager. We'll be back in 30 seconds on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast.
Being a part of a cooperative is being a part of something bigger. Farm Credit Mid-America is a customer-owned lender that specializes in agricultural financing for farm real estate, operating, and farm equipment. A unique benefit of being a part of the Farm Credit Mid-America Cooperative is our patronage program, which has put over $1 billion back in our customers' hands over the last 7 years. That's the power of a cooperative. Visit us at fcma.com to learn more.
I own the land.
I farm the land. Together we're farmers. This is our cooperative.
You've heard from Amy Adams-Strunk, from Burke Nihill, and from Chad Brinker regarding Ran Carthon being out as the second-year Titans general manager. Now you'll hear from Blaine Kellar, Terry McCormick, Chris Yao on our thoughts about Ran Carthon being moved on from. Terry, we'll start with you. What do you think about this move?
Well, Amy Adams-Strunk said in her statement that she loves this franchise more than you can imagine. Right now, it appears like she's loving it to death because she is creating a level of chaos and instability that is going to be hard to overcome for Brian Callahan, for Chad Brinker, and for whoever the new general manager becomes. When you look at just everything about this, did you really give Ran Carthon a chance to improve and flesh out this roster and be a part of this rebuild? I would answer no to that, because in 2023, he came on board around this time in mid to late January. And part of the draft board and a lot of these scouting evaluations obviously had already been done by John Robinson's staff. He was forced to keep those scouts in place. So really, the 2023 draft is only halfway belongs to him. The other half belongs to Mike Vrabel and John Robinson. So he got the 2024 draft. Now he's fired. Now he'll have half of this draft that he won't get credit for, and a new general manager will be put in the exact same spot that Ran Carthon was, having to piggyback off of the work that's been done by Carthon's scouting staff. This is the third straight year of a coach or general manager being fired. If I'm Brian Callahan, I'm not taking out any long-term leases in Nashville. I'm also not on board with a rookie quarterback with the number 1 pick, because if you bring in a rookie quarterback and that rookie quarterback struggles, as most rookie quarterbacks do, guess what? You're the next one that Amy Adams Strunk is throwing out the door. Chris, the floor is yours.
I thought, I heard one continuous thing in those statements, and that is this team did not improve. And I vehemently disagree with that. I think overall, the team is better talent-wise than it was 2 years ago. And I have challenged folks on Twitter to give me a position group that they think is worse today than it was in 2022. Quarterback is probably accurate. Now,
well, I don't know about that, because when Ryan Tannehill got hurt, you finished the year with Malik Willis and Josh Dobbs.
And they lost how many games in a row?
7.
Because they started 7-1 and lost 7 games in a row. So
they started 7-3 and lost their last 7.
Okay, so there you go. I mean, are they better off today than they were then? I don't know, maybe. But of course, like I told you off camera, Blaine, is we didn't know what we had in Will Levis. We didn't know what we did or didn't have. You couldn't have predicted that he was going to be the worst quarterback ever. I say that. A lot of fans who watched him in college thought that and whatnot. But as a scouting department, you couldn't say, well, he's not going to be the guy. A lot of folks thought he was going to be the guy. So they went with him. All right. Offensive line, much better, right?
The left side, anyway.
Well, but I mean, you're talking about 2 guys who finished in the top half of pass blocking grades in PFF as a rookie and a sophomore. That's pretty good. Your center has been hurt. Your center got hurt in 2022. Your center got hurt this year. Your right side has been terrible for 2 years. And by the way, all these people talking about Ran Carthon didn't address the right tackle issue. Did everybody forget he did address the right tackle issue and the guy up and retired mid-camp?
Yeah, Sadiq Charles. I mean, who could have seen that coming? Could that have been one of the dominant in this entire?
In fairness, he was at right guard, but still, yeah.
But you had plans for right tackle, and then you ended up having to scrap it all. All right, so let's go to wide receiver. They upgraded wide receiver in 2024. I don't think there's any question that Westbrook Akine is a much better number 3 than Traylon Burks ever was. I think he's a better 2 than Traylon Burks ever was. I mean, wide receiver is better. Offensive line is better. Quarterback is iffy. Derrick Henry wasn't coming back, and there isn't another Derrick Henry in the league. So I don't know what
still
anybody
got a 1,000-yard rusher out of that. Out of Derrick Henry's replacement.
You got Tony Pollard, who is pretty darn good, right? And even Tajay Spears not
Brian
bad.
Callahan wants to do better than Derrick Henry does.
Sure.
Right. And that was part of the whole thing, right? So let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Edge rusher, probably worse. I mean, Danico Autry is better than anybody we've got on the team.
And Harold Landry got lost a step on you.
Yeah, over 2 years. All right. Defensive tackle, better. Not even close. Inside linebacker, I don't know, Azeez Al-Shaair.
David Long was a pretty good player in his prime.
Right. But, I mean, at what point did you have to go, okay, well, we got to find a position that we're not going to spend money on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So inside linebacker clearly was that position, and edge, I guess. Cornerback, L'Jarius Sneed was injured this year by a body part that was never a concern in his career. So people say, well, he had injury problems. He might have had injury problems, but none of the injury problems he ever had in his career were the ones that flared up this year. So again, the Titans have had strength and conditioning problems going back way before this front office or staff has been there. All right. Awuzie, not great, but better than we had. I don't know if anybody remembers how bad our cornerbacks were, but they were terrible.
That's actually
about Trey Avery, yeah.
Now. That's actually a position of strength now.
It's
When you add in Jarvis Brownlee, of course, you still got Roger McCreary and Darrell Baker.
I agree completely. I think it's by far the better than it was before. And then safety. Kevin Byard's been pretty bad since we let him go, but we didn't replace him with anybody that was anywhere near what we got out of Kevin Byard 2 years ago. But again, much better at wide receiver, much better at cornerback. I'm not sure how people expected him to go and get a wide receiver, offensive line, edge rusher, defensive tackle, inside linebacker, cornerback, safety, and running backs in 1.5 years.
Well, that's exactly why I asked Brian Callahan yesterday. I said, last year the consensus was that all the holes couldn't be filled in one offseason. Are you at a point where you can fill them all now? And he said, we're going to try. So they're still in that spot.
They can't. It can't be done. You can't do it over 4 years with legitimate playmakers. That's the thing. You couldn't have done this in 3 or 4 years with legitimate playmakers. Our cap was terrible.
The only thing that was going to save you in this situation would have been to have found a generational quarterback. And one of those was not available to you. Is that fair?
This is my point is, yes, there are 3 quarterbacks who ended up playing pretty good that we could have taken in last year's drafts. Now, that means you have to either give up Devondre Sweat or J.C. Latham, which giving up J.C. Latham kind of screws you anyway. So, I mean, could you have drafted Bo Nix? Sure. Probably. Could you have taken Penix or Nix? Okay.
There's no help on either side of the line. There's no strong side of the line at that point.
And on top of all of that, not only is the line bad, but then you have 2 rookie quarterbacks.
Well,
and nobody. I mean, do you just tell Will Levis after he played 3 games last year to kick rocks?
No, you're exactly right. And here's the thing with that. You put Bo Nix on the Titans roster, he looks more like Will Levis than he does what he's looked like in Denver because he's probably running for his life, doesn't have as good of weapons to work with, and is on a team that it doesn't have enough foundational pieces.
He is Auburn Bo Nix running for his life versus Oregon Bo Nix in a place where he can actually do what Bo Nix does. I said before the season, when the Broncos drafted Bo Nix, I said Bo Nix will be one of the 4 quarterbacks still playing in this league 10 years from now. From that draft.
He went into a good situation.
Exactly.
Great coach with Sean Payton. There are enough pieces around, and that's the key. And that's how the Titans have to rebuild this. And they really didn't give Ran Carthon much of a chance to complete that project because it was such a rebuild. The Houston Texans went through it. They burned through 2 coaches before they got the one they wanted in DeMeco Ryans. But by the time DeMeco Ryans was there, they were in a draft, through some wheeling and dealing, and they were fortunate to be able to get a boatload of picks for Deshaun Watson because Cleveland was stupid. And so they used those picks, and now they have C.J. Stroud, they have Will Anderson, they have a decent offensive line and plenty of weapons and a pretty good defense so that you can actually put a consistent product on the field, and C.J. Stroud doesn't have to do everything by himself or run for his life every play.
I'll say this, and you just hit the nail on the head there, Terry. The only thing that could have saved Ran Carthon's job was patience from the Titans front office to give him another draft class to see if this guy is what they're looking for, a guy who has scouting experience and ability to develop a 53-man roster, and a guy like the front office said is all ball all day. But whenever you go through a firing of a head coach or a GM year after year after year, there's just no time, it seems like, for patience. And what happened to collaboration is my biggest question, my biggest takeaway from all of this, because that's what Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker and Brian Callahan have preached for the past 12 months.
And Amy Adams Strunk.
And Amy Adams Strunk as well. They've all preached this collaborative process that they're all going to work together to really resurrect this franchise. And now when it comes firing time, it's not time to clean house. It's time to let Ran Carthon be the one piece of collaboration that has to go. And now elevating Chad Brinker to this, like I said, end-all, be-all, final say, to use a term from Buck Rising, shadow GM, that they're kind of alluding to now. That's not collaboration. That won't be collaboration for the next GM. That won't be collaboration for Brian Callahan if Chad Brinker's the one who's making these final decisions.
Yeah, and I don't like Chad Brinker. I think he knows a lot of football. I think he's a guy that if given an opportunity and they stay out of his way and let him hire good people, he might have a chance to turn this thing around. But, the way things are going, who knows who's next on the chop block. One day you're in favor with Amy Adams Strunk, the next day you're out on the street and she's paying you not to coach or not to make GM decisions. She's already paying Mike Vrabel. She's already paying John Robinson. Now she's paying Ran Carthon.
How much of
I believe Carthon still has 4 years on his deal. Go ahead, Chris.
How much of that plays into not firing Brian Callahan?
Well, it didn't factor into not firing Ran Carthon.
No, I understand, but firing one versus firing two.
That's a good question. Only Amy Adams Strunk knows for sure. But the whole point of that is, if it doesn't go well next year, then you're going to go a fourth straight year and fire somebody.
Well, I guess
and that could happen by November, considering the circumstances. If these Titans go 1-6, if they have maybe even 2-5 through the first 7 games, I don't see a world where Brian Callahan and this staff makes it through November.
Like I said, if I'm Brian Callahan, I'm not on board with Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I'm on board with going and finding a veteran who can win me 7 or 8 games and save my job. Then I'll look for a quarterback later.
Ran Carthon out in his second season as Titans GM. What's next for this franchise? We'll take a break, and when we come back, Terry McCormick will break down a couple of candidates for this team, and we'll continue to give you some more thoughts as Ran Carthon is out. You're watching the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast, brought to you by Main Street Media Television.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
Tennessee Pro Football Podcast continues. Ran Carthon no more as Titans GM, as Amy Adams Strunk, Chad Brinker, Burke Nihill announced today. In a statement, Brinker said this particular job, this opening, what we'll be looking for is someone who spent their career as a scout, top flight, top level evaluator who spent the majority of their years projecting college players. Terry, with that in mind, who are some names that could be up next for this position in the Titans organization?
Well, I threw out 4 or 5 names, on Twitter there. And, one of those was former Colts GM Ryan Grigson, who is currently with the Vikings and certainly would like another opportunity to be a general manager. I know that for a fact from having talked to people that are close to him, that he would like an opportunity to interview for the job. Another one that is being thrown around is Louis Riddick, the ESPN analyst. But if I'm Louis Riddick, do I want to leave the comfort of the ESPN broadcast booth to throw myself into the chaos that this organization is right now? I'm not sure I do. But, maybe worthy of at least a phone call or consideration. Another name on the list is Ray Farmer, former Browns GM, who has kind of rehabilitated his career with the Los Angeles Rams in their front office. There is former Falcons general manager and I think team president, maybe Thomas Dimitroff, who had a good run there with Matt Ryan and some others. The fact that this job will not have final say on all personnel matters might scare some guys like Dimitroff away from it because he's been used to having that final say in his previous stops. Another name, and I'm going to throw this out there, I don't know if this name is going to make Amy Adams' Strunk list, but it should. And that is Nashville resident and former Nashville Cats coach Pat Sperduto. He is currently the co-director of college scouting for the Kansas City Chiefs. He cut his teeth while the Nashville Cats were on hiatus in the Arena League. He joined the Titans staff as a special assistant to then General Manager Floyd Reese, worked in the scouting department, cut his teeth there. 2009, he left and went to the Kansas City Chiefs. And in that time, he's had a hand. He started off as the Southeast Region scout. First draft, he brought in Dexter McCluster and Eric Berry as part of that.
That seems good.
Since that time, we all know what the Chiefs have done. Not only hitting the lottery with Patrick Mahomes, trading up to get him with the 10th pick, but think about the players that they've gotten beyond round 1. Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, Trey Smith, one of Chris's favorites, 6th round pick. Tyreek Hill, 5th round pick. L'Jarius Sneed, 4th round pick. This is a guy that knows football, knows how to scout talent, lives right here in Nashville, has past ties to the organization. Amy Adams Strunk, if you're watching this by chance, bring this man in for an interview.
And on top of all of that, Terry, he fits exactly what Blaine Kellar just said. He has spent his entire career in the National Football League scouting collegiate talent. And so if you're looking for a guy who doesn't have the ego of a GM, but has spent his entire career as a scout and knows what he's talking about, he is the perfect fit for this job.
No doubt about it. You're right on, Chris. That is absolutely correct. He's a football lifer, if you will. He's been in this business for 30 plus years. A man that will go and coach in the Arena Football League at that low of a level to get his start in professional football will do the grunt work and the grind work that has to be done to be a successful scout and a successful general manager at the highest level because he's paid his dues.
And you have to be able to find guys. You have to be able to find guys at that level and find the diamonds in the rough. And that's what those. I mean,
exactly.
More than half of the 53-man roster for almost every team is made up of undrafted free agents.
He's the type of guy that he knows it'll be worth going to scout a Memphis Showboats game to find a backup safety. Is that fair enough?
Absolutely, he would.
Lots of love for Pat Sperduto here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. As a name to watch, Paul Kuharski writes that John Eric Sullivan, Packers Vice President of Player Personnel, has ties to Chad Brinker, maybe somebody to watch out for here. I want to go back to this quote.
Is he bringing Matt LaFleur with him? Because otherwise –
this quote that was brought up in the release saying a guy who's all ball all day. Is that indicative of what Ran Carthon wasn't? And that's kind of in tie with another piece that Paul released today, talking about Carthon's inner workings within the organization. Do we feel like Carthon was not that for the Titans organization?
In my interactions with him, I felt like, he was on point and he was, doing what he needed to do. Now, I have heard whispers behind the scenes that maybe he didn't take it as seriously as he should. I think that was the term that was put out there by an out-of-town reporter who I'm friends with, who told me that he had heard rumblings around the league from his sources and people that he's close to that said there was the possibility that a change could be in the offing. So if that's the case, maybe that's Amy Adams Strunk's reason for her out on Ran Carthon. But, I still think that you didn't give the man a fair shake. And the fact that it's a bad look, even if there were reasons for doing so inside the building, it's a bad enough look that it might scare off a potential candidate or two from wanting to cast their lot with the Titans.
On top of all of that, we don't know. Why don't we know? Because Amy Adams Strunk will not face the Nashville media. And if at some point, she's going to have to step onto that podium and answer some questions from this Nashville media.
Just don't think it'll happen.
It's never going to happen. I have my thoughts on why, but it's absolutely pathetic that Amy Adams Strunk has not set foot to that podium in 3 years to tell us why she's made the move she's made.
If she didn't tell us why she fired Mike Vrabel or why she fired John Robinson, she won't tell us why she fired Ran Carthon.
This statement is
she didn't even tell us why she hired Brian Callahan.
Statements, I think, in regards to the Nashville media about all we're going to get. That's a bad look, again, on Amy Adams Strunk. You mentioned some bad looks on Ran Carthon's part, maybe some tone-deaf notes from him throughout the season in some of those media interviews that he had, saying the ball wasn't bouncing the Titans' way. He said that in a Tennessean interview, I believe during a game against Detroit. In the preseason, he said they checked all of their boxes in the offseason, but obviously you can look at this roster and realize that wasn't the case. There are bad moments of Ran Carthon that absolutely need to be highlighted and kinds of some bad looks on his part. But he also had a pretty successful draft class overall this year. He made the most of an Ernest Jones trade that he realized quickly wasn't going to pan out. He made a couple of moves that I think have been pretty well respected and recognized over his first and pretty much only offseason in the league.
Yeah, I mean, because like we talked about earlier, the 2023 draft, a lot of the pieces of the puzzle were already in place. And then, so how much of 2023 do you attach to him? 2024 is entirely his. So, now going forward, it's going to be interesting to see, holding the number one pick, what the Titans do, what Chad Brinker does. And, his ties to the Green Bay Packer organization, would seem to suggest that he knows what stability looks like and what a winning organization looks like. Maybe he can implement some of that and get some people in place here and finally stop this three-ring circus that's been going on here since 2022.
Chris doesn't seem sold.
Based on what? There's no evidence.
No, but I'm just saying, if Chad Brinker has control, he needs to put his foot down on some things and say, this is the way it's going to be done, and model it after what he learned in Green Bay.
Here's my problem with all of that. I don't think the coach is very good. And I don't think it matters how many good players you have. If your coach is not very good, it's not going to matter.
Well, I mean, you got to give him a chance. I mean, I guess, the Levis thing didn't really work out to anyone's satisfaction. He says he's not completely given up on Levis, but Levis has got to show him now. I think he said there will be competition at the quarterback position. If you can fix the quarterback position and fix the offensive line, you got a chance. If not, more of the same.
The Titans finished 3-14 in Callahan's first season and Carthon's second and last season as Titans general manager. They're on the clock as the number one pick. My question to you guys, does this change the viewpoint of the draft, the perspective of that number one pick, depending on who that new general manager is? Do you think they're more likely to take someone like Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward as opposed to trading back and stockpiling picks?
It all depends on who it is.
I'm curious if it's going to change Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders' outlook.
Well, Deion did comment on this earlier today. You saw the announcement, and on X posted, wow. There was a wow for Deion.
So I'm just saying, I don't know. We've gone through drafts before where Eli Mannings and John Elways and whatnots, and so who knows? But I could see Deion saying, "Hey, y'all don't know what y'all got going on. My kid ain't coming." We get a fifth year of eligibility now. Everybody's got a fifth year of eligibility.
To be honest with you, I'd rather have Cam Ward anyway.
No, Mr. 87 turnovers. No, thank you. Turnover machines. We got enough of those already. We don't need no more.
We're going to get into draft evaluations later on down the road, but the big news today, of course, Ran Carthon out in his second season as Titans GM. The search starts for Chad Brinker, Burke Nihill, and Amy Adams Strunk. They also begin the scouting process of picking the number one prospect of the 2025 NFL Draft. Thanks for joining us on an emergency episode of the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast.
Yeah. Hey, don't forget, at 2 o'clock, Main Street Sports Today, Wade Neely, Maurice Patton. I'm sure they will have more on this as well. So you've got that.
Continued coverage at 2 o'clock. Stick around for Mo Patton and Wade Neely, who will have some great insight on this. We'll have you covered later on down the road as this search continues in Tennessee. Thanks for joining.